Well, hello to the audience. Thank you for the intro, Stephanie. Yeah, as already mentioned, today we're going to talk a little bit more about technical topics, actually, IT security with SAP, the importance of cross-department and technology controls. And we'll jump right in. First, of course, we will have, as always, a short intro, then a short demo, and afterwards we will have the QA session and then wrap it up. So, what is actually the goal of this webinar? We will have multiple webinars actually following this topic. There we really want to illustrate how certain aspects about SAP security. We want to raise awareness. We want to illustrate how hackers are thinking, how they act in systems, how lateral movement can be done in a system, what kind of technologies and what influences actually this phenomenon. So going over different attacking vectors, and what I really want to show here is that it's actually not that difficult to hack an SAP system. And by that, I want to raise awareness, not pushing you to hack your systems, but understand what the problems could be, or where the problems you might face in hardening your system come from, and how easy it is actually to exploit vulnerabilities which exist in the SAP environment. So, as always, in an introduction about SAP security, main question is, why is SAP a high-value target? Or in general, why is hacking a thing? And then why SAP is? Of course, SAP normally is in use not for private purposes, but for companies dealing with financial data, generating analysis and reports about their core business, having blueprints. And a lot of times this is the door actually to also get into the network of an potential victim company. So here, those are the bullet points why actually SAP is a high value target. And this kind of switched over the years. Normally, the first version of SAP, and they were really kind of close to itself, limited, so security there was not that big of an issue. But if you now look at different technologies being used in the SAP system, SAP systems being exposed to the internet, so on and so forth, you have a lot of factors which influence the security posture of your landscape. And therefore, I brought a practical example with actually at first a very strange question. What does a fish and IT security have in common, actually? Kind of strange question to ask, but quite recently, a few years ago, and actually a fish tank helped actually hack a casino in the US. So the same, or actually, if you look at the core reason why actually this happened, was that there is an interconnected system. In this case, it was a you could say smart home, which actually gathered over sensor in the fish tank the temperature and regulated the temperature automatically of this particular fish tank. And someone was so creative actually to check that there is a IoT, Internet of Things sensor, got access to it, and over that actually hopped into the network of this particular casino and exported 10 gigabytes of data. No further information on what kind of data and also which kind of casino, but this shows actually the strange development we have, making everything smarter, making everything more interconnected. Somehow also sadly goes a little bit hand in hand, and increasing, of course, the attack surface a potential hacker can have on your system. And also this particular example showcases actually that actually the only limiting thing in getting hacked is actually the creativity of the hacker. There are many different ways like social engineering or plain malconfiguration, so on and so forth, or aspects a hacker can utilize to actually get a hold of a system. And even such high security environment like a casino, you would think, okay, who actually can behave strangely in the casino, getting a hold on those sensors? Somehow he must spot it, what kind of sensor it is, done some research, and also talking about numbers and network security. I would thought that a casino is very, very crucial about hiding numbers or, well, securing actually financial data, business data. Somehow managed to get hold of their system. And this is, of course, also fact that many technologies result in oversight loss. So they maybe just said, okay, well, if I look at the standard casino, how big they are, just pick and choose something that's reasonable in pricing, but did not actually focus. Okay, but guess what? An IoT thing can be used to actually get a hold on the system, on the network, and then a few additional ifs resulted then actually in this particular case. And also really to highlight here. Of course, here we have one central single loophole actually in the first place where the attacker got access to the network. But actually, if we think about that showcase in that case a little bit further, then actually it's just one single step in a whole line of events actually, or configurations, where this casino done a not so tremendous job. And it all starts with really, really simple things. Always when I'm out in public looking around, out of the nature and working in IT security, I find quite often actually that even in such not so big public not so big companies, but also small, really small companies or doctors, the feeling for IT security is not well established. Having an open Ethernet port here, picture I found on Reddit, then of course the hacker, there are things like hot plugs, Ethernet, or Bash Bunny, which you can directly insert and open USB ports, which can also be then remotely controlled. Which a normal individual which has no affiliation or no touch base actually with IT security doesn't think about. And here this really illustrates how being creative as a hacker really leverages then also your capabilities. And of course, when we talk about IT security, we can go over what kind of numbers or what the total overall damage is. There are very good reports around that. The IBM cost of a data breach, the Verizon report, Symantec, which all kind of draw the same numbers. And also what's really, really important to highlight here, that over the time, overall exploits actually increased because knowledge is being shared, knowledge is pretty easy to obtain compared to 20 years ago. The internet, Wikipedia, GitHub, all such kind of technologies which hackers use actually to leverage their hacking game, or also even hacking training sites which actually also offer dedicated SAP hacking tools and hacking trainings. And we will see the numbers increasing, I'm very, very sure, in the next few years. Which actually brings us to the question, why SAP or hacking SAP, or well, securing SAP is such a hard topic for a lot of people, for a lot of companies. Because on the one side, resources are limited, of course. Having the top-notch security affiliates, which really know each cipher and the entropy of each cipher, you will find very not so frequent. And on top of that, SAP utilizes different technologies. So we're talking about an operating system, which somehow also communicates via the network to other operating systems, to other systems, so on and so forth. We have a database on that. We have a SAP basis system. On top of SAP, we might have custom applications. And if we look out of this perspective on an SAP system, we see the potential surface in the basis itself, in the basic configuration of SAP itself, is so tremendous that it's actually now, if you combine that with having multiple SAP systems and different purpose SAP systems, Concur, Ariba, or classical ABAP, Java stack, then you can see that there are many different technologies, and therefore you need an expert for actually every single of those topics to solve the particular issue with them. Of course, there's SAP launching the OSS node, the security nodes, so on and so forth, and giving you also some guides, some hints, but this then also require time. And time, of course, in the free market is a very limited resource, which results actually that a lot of times customers are heavily struggling internally or also then with external systems, and create such or open vectors or attacking vectors in their system. And it's really, really easy to actually also get information, as I said. Here, a quick Google search resulted in 4.5 million results in 33 seconds. We can see here a PDF site from the Duke University on SAP hacking, various blog entries. And we also see here on the right-hand side, if you just click a little bit further, a GitHub repo from Dimitri Chastrin, very good hacker, actually SAP hacker, which also provide proof of concept code for you to execute and test if the system is secure. Of course, if you slightly alter it, you can use that particular code to not be a POC anymore, but actually get a hold of your system. And this is also on top of that, we have the fact that actually SAP kind of provides also a documentation on how to exploit the system on every Patch Tuesday, because on every Patch Tuesday there are the OSS nodes being released, and there a specific topic is addressed. After that, of course, you will see then that after Patch Tuesday, all the hackers or hacking activities in global honeypots increased, trying out directly what SAP has released as security vulnerabilities in OSS nodes. And as you can see, the CVE details database is a perfect database actually to do some research on what kind of vulnerabilities around SAP exist. And if you really use a little bit the filters they provide here on this particular web page, then you can also drill down by modules, so on and so forth, attacking vectors. And you can find then actually information on how to enter a system legally in a huge database. And this also not only goes for SAP, of course, but also for the underlying technologies, all databases, all operating systems. 0 days, heartbeats, you name it, you will find documentation on that more than enough in the internet. And which brings actually to us to our core statement. What we think out of the Pathwork perspective is actually key to success here. And it's really what we highly evangelize as having a holistic approach. A lot of times people in companies focus on one area, but this particular area only. And we say, well, your security measures are only as strong as the weakest link in the chain. So there's also a German saying, the soccer team is as good as the worst player in the team. And most certainly hackers will identify that and exploit actually the weakest point of your system. So if it's, of course, not maintained ACL file, that's quite obvious because there are some standard ways around that. But talking also about further exploitation once someone is in your system, having weak access controls, weak role concept, of course, or bad coding, actually backdoors in coding can be utilized actually to then hop from system to system. And this is right where we will hop in. So talking a little bit about code security here in this case, we've recently launched actually our first video of a whole series of videos on how to hack an SAP system. And today we're shifting the tone a little bit, or well, according to the video, also having a look on code security. And in the following webinar series, we will look at example scenarios of transport security, how the transport system can be exploited. Then also the topic vulnerability management, so talking there a little bit about the basic configuration parameters, how they can be exploited. Then role-based access control, how the role-based access control actually can be exploited, or the concept is not sufficient enough anymore. And then we will shift to threat detection, having then more the real-time analysis, so someone utilizing actually loopholes and how to detect this then. So without further ado, I will shift into the SAP system. Here I'm logged in as a user, as always, in such kind of demo scenarios called Malice. Malice is a developer, and yeah, has had a ticket to create actually a so-called vendor payment run. And the vendor payment run, the main purpose is to list vendors for booking. So the team can see, okay, which vendor payment is due next. And as we can see here, she only has access rights, display rights. She has no chance to actually alter the data set. But with a small use of the concept called hidden OK code, she is able to actually manipulate data here. So what she can do is enter actually the hidden OK code, the action code, which is not tied to any button here, called CHG. It's short for change. She can enter the change mode. She can alter here now the bank account. As you can probably hear from my German accent, we will now wire here the payment from the US bank to a German bank, and then we will increase the payment amount because I want to have a nice vacation to 15 million. And now all I need to do is to type in the action code for the hidden routine, save. And now we can see that the net payment amount here increased already. And now the next time actually when the payment is being processed, 15 million will not be transferred to the US bank account, but to my fraudulent bank account. So how does this happen? This is actually a backdoor we found at a customer, and we actually quite often find at a customer because it has to do with multiple aspects. On the one side, actually designing applications, of course, has two or more dimensions. You have on the one side the presentation layer. I have my buttons, I have my text edits, line edits, and on the other side I have the backend. And the backend, all the logic is being processed, all the data selects are being done. And what you can do actually here in this case is you can hide buttons define so-called OK codes. OK codes are the action codes which will be assigned to a certain variable, and based on the variable value, actions will be done. A method will be executed, a routine will be executed. This is how the SAP's software knows what to do next. By the click of the button, this value will be assigned to the variable, and then the action will be executed. And here the challenge, of course, is, as we also have seen in the intro slide, that here for this particular case, if there is no code review actually in place, then the problem, of course, is that as an in-house development, when you give this particular solution now to your financial department, and financial department actually then here executes this, using it in its normal use case, there will be no problem. But the problem now is if the misuse case here with the hidden OK codes is being executed. And this is right the point where we say a holistic approach is necessary. On the one side, we want to detect right away when, or you want to detect right away when development is being made, that actually here something fraudulent has been developed. But on the other side, you also want to know as soon as this application goes live in your financial department, that this loophole has been utilized. And how do you do that? Well, of course, you have here in this particular application a table lying beneath. And this particular table actually, as every table, is also being documented for changes. So you want also to enable for actually then the financial department that you also track table changes. You can filter this out by the SAP standard, or you can utilize actually tools like one of ours, our threat detection, which will directly then show you actually and pinpoint the needle in the haystack. If we now take a look here in our Xeum solution, we can actually see that user malice has table content changed. We can see also here that in a certain table called zvendor, this particular user has changed the key value for Acme Core. Now I can go in, I can escalate, I can here directly then interfere and see what has happened and escalate to kick malice out and not wire 15 million euros to the fraudulent bank account. This is exact what we also show in our first scenario, in our first demo video. So let's quickly recap here. The prerequisite is having no code reviews and having also no authority or no visibility on actually what's happening in the transport system. So what we offer therefore is, or what we tell our customers here is to say, have a layered approach, really know actually what is going on in your system. And this consists of multiple different bullet points actually. On the one side, you want to educate your fellow employees. You need to let the developer know that he has done a bad job or how to do it better. Practically, it would be nice if the developer actually has a tool on his hand where he can schedule ad hoc scans and really gets the visibility here to say, okay, well, this happened in my system. Or this is happening from my statements, what I'm doing. On the other side, you want to have the financial department, which also have clear insight actually. That's also software they use can be used also in a misuse case, and therefore I have a threat detection solution in place, and then can combine actually in those scenarios the information. I can then see, okay, where is this? What kind of report has this particular user, or the transaction has this particular user used? Then I can go ahead and say, well, I want to code scan this, and then I see, okay, here's the pin, and I can pinpoint here the problem. Therefore, we evangelize highly on designing your security strategy multi-layered. So not having only one failsafe, not looking only on your department, saying now, for example, code scanning. If you're developing development, you will mainly focus actually on transport control and on code scanning. But actually, there are also some cases how you can do lateral movement in SAP systems from the development system. So a hacker will automate, or will, in the nature of his human being, will focus on a development system because he knows he can hop from development systems where privileges are pretty loose, where you have pretty high privileges for everyone, to hop to other systems. So therefore, we need to take corresponding and related areas into account. So there we have the whole topic about interfaces. Are my interconnections to other systems, are they secure? Do they have the roles to do the job they should be doing, especially the technical users, the services they run? Do they have only actually the permission to do that? Or do they have SAP all because the developer said, well, I want to run it and I don't want to mess with, or don't want to have troubles with authorizations? Also, what we see a lot of in the market is, don't be a fool with the tool. Ensure stakeholders and know about the abilities of the security solutions. It's like having a helicopter. It's really nice to have a helicopter in your landscape, which actually covers all of your use cases if you use it correctly, but you do not know how to fly it. So your helicopter will be pretty neat sculpture, but that's it. And don't be afraid to ask the what if question, because a hacker will always do that. You will always go around and say, okay, what if I try this? What if I try this? And a lot of times people get annoyed if you say, okay, well, if we are really precise about security, well, it should be that way. And based on that culture, a lot of times loopholes are accepted, but no compensating control therefore defined. I can only really know what I'm dealing with if I have clear visibility. And I can say, okay, I can disregard the topic if I have a failsafe. So talking about lateral movements, about interfaces and system hopping, then you have the possibility, of course, with a threat detection solution where you can see, okay, corresponding RFC jumps, logging in via RFC. You can draw then actually a line or a map, so-called, where this user went to really then undo his no-nos. And we at Pathlock do that with 4 different modules or 4 different concepts. Let me put it that way. We have on the very core your role-based access control, where the classical role-based access control provided by SAP. And then on top of that, we have our attribute-based access control. There we enhance actually, or well, not enhance, but create an access control based on attributes. So if there is a dynamic aspect, like, let's say someone done a phishing attack on you. So he has actually then your credentials, logging in with your credentials to the system. So theoretically, based on the role-based access control principle and mechanisms, he's authenticated. But there you can take, of course, IP address, location, entities into account and say, well, guess what? I'm not trusting your IP address. It's not in the usual range. So I will block access for you with this particular IP address to your system. And this also incorporates then also the possibility to say, okay, well, with role-based access control, all the standard transaction SAP gives me is nice and fine, and I want to use that. But sometimes, if we look at BP or so on and so forth, it provides too much permission for this particular user. He only needs to go in and see not the bank details, but actually name and address. Then you can say with attribute-based access control, okay, I want to mask actually this particular piece of data for this particular user in this transaction. And leveraging actually then the capabilities which you have already with the role-based access control, extending it to attribute-based access control. And then, of course, it's all about making your system secure, making your development secure, because if the core is not right, if your parameters are not right configured, then of course all the concepts and steps you have undertaken are as I said, the weakest link in the chain will break. And there we look for the parameters, so also ACL file configuration, a story we probably face every day. We do not need to talk about role-based access control and attribute-based access control if you still haven't nowadays maintain ZEC info, rec info, for instance, the ACL gateway files. So there people can exploit that to actually create users on your system, get access to the operating system level pretty easily. And on top of that, if you're now in the hardening process, you will also want to know actually what is going on in my system and how to react. Therefore, we have then the threat detection really then showing up, okay, here's a malicious activity, and this is how you can address it. So the core concept here, as we can see, are twofold actually. It's cyclical and real-time. Cyclical, we talk about our vulnerability scanning, where we check on parameters, profiles, so on and so forth. And then we have talking about technical security, we have our threat detection, which then looks at real-time at all the logs in the SAP system. And really, instead of looking at the snapshot in this particular moment, it will capture then the mean time between and then escalate. And this is also what we would recommend for any SAP user, having a concept which is similar to ours in their landscape. Which brings me actually to our Q&A. I would open now the chat for questions.
I'm not seeing any questions at the moment, but I do want to encourage you that if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at info@pathlock.com, and we would be happy to answer any of your questions, or you can reach out to Jonathan if you have any questions for him at jonathan.strauss@pathlock.com. And with that, I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming, and we hope to see you at future webinar events.